She even proposed holding a make-up wedding banquet so everyone in the surrounding 10 villages and 8 townships would know about their relationship. She grinned foolishly, her eyes full of simple, pure love for Alex. Alex naturally wouldn't refuse. However, going to county seat made him think of a few things. With the government currently encouraging the contracting of barren land, his $100,000 could finally be put to use. Having thought it through, Alex felt he still needed to discuss it with Sarah, as many things would require her help. In the evening, after they had both finished their chores, Alex closed the doors and windows and called Sarah into his room. "Sarah, I want to talk to you about something," Alex said seriously. "When I came here, I brought a sum of money with me. I want to start a small business in the county seat. Will you go with me?" Sarah was a born and bred country girl. Things like starting a business were in her mind only for rich people. Now her husband was telling her they were going into business too. Her voice couldn't help but carry a note of this. "What kind of business would we do? Besides fishing and selling fish, I don't know how to do anything." "Even if you don't know anything, you can still do business. And I'm confident I can do it well." Seeing Alex's serious expression, Sarah's little bit of worry vanished. She gritted her teeth and pulled out a little more money from her pocket. "All right, this is my private savings, you can have it too. Alex, whatever you want to do, just do it. I'll definitely support you." Alex paused, surprised that this seemingly simple and honest person actually had hidden savings. His expression flickered, finding it both amusing and endearing. He returned the small sum to her. "You should keep your private savings. If the business fails, I'll have to rely on you to support me." He said it with a smile, making Sarah blush crimson once again. For the next few weeks, Alex was busy with the business. He had 100,000, a considerable sum in the countryside. He went to the county seat, looked at several shops, and finally chose a medium-sized one. After renovations, he decided a deal in rice. Next, he discussed with the village chief and contracted several families' fields, hiring people to work them. The grain harvested would be sold in his shop. With poverty gradually receding, things would surely get better in the future, and rice was an indispensable item for every household. He and Sarah worked hard for several months, finally settling everything and officially opening for business. At the same time, to make it a double celebration, his and Sarah's wedding banquet was also held on this day. No Arthur Miller, no Samuel Evans, and no Clara Holloway. His life would definitely get better and better from now on. He looked at the person beside him and smiled genuinely. Alex chuckled. Sarah was good in every way, but she was too cautious and humble, always feeling she wasn't good enough for him. In reality, what did good enough even mean? He said nothing, simply tugged at her sash and pulled her close. As clothes were shed piece by piece, revealing large expanses of fair skin, Alex could no longer hold back. He grasped her slender waist and began to move with a fierce rhythm. In an instant, sweet moans escaped, further inflaming desire. What no one expected was that outside their house, Clara Holloway stood by the wall. Hearing the faint, suggestive sounds from within, her fists were clenched so tightly her nails nearly dug in her flesh. She hadn't expected Alex to be telling the truth. They had actually been intimate. The thought of him making such sounds with another woman made Clara feel as if a piece of her heart had been gouged out, the pain unbearable. Yet she couldn't move, just stood there, letting those sounds become the sharpest blades, stabbing at her heart. It wasn't until the moon grew hazy and the sun began to rise that the sound from the room finally ceased. Clara still maintained that posture. She had stood there all night, but she had also made up her mind. Even so, she still wanted Alex to go back with her. As long as he was willing, she would pay any price. She didn't believe that in just a few short months Alex would stop loving her. He must be trying to get back at her. The next day, Clara Holloway didn't leave. Instead, she rented a spare room from a villager and settled in. Alex and Sarah, however, slept until noon. A woman newly intimate with her husband was even more devoted. "You don't have to, by the way. Is your leg okay, Alex?" He blushed, feeling a bit awkward about last night, but Sarah still shook her head. "I'm fine. Last night, I enjoyed it very much." Faced with such obvious affection, Alex could only nod. If someone had told him in the past that he would fall for a simple country fisherwoman, Alex definitely wouldn't have believed it. He was a young master, tall and handsome, with countless people vying for his attention. How could he possibly fall for a country girl? But during this time with Sarah, he had genuinely been moved. Even sleeping together last night had been his own choice. He sat on the edge of the bed, thinking for a while, feeling rather shy. He decided to go for a walk, pick some vegetables. But just as he stepped out, he saw Clara standing nearby. She looked like she hadn't slept all night, with severe dark circles under her eyes. Only when she saw him did some life return to her. "Alex," she called out, restraining herself. Alex's expression was neutral. Captain Holloway must believe me now, right? He knew that given Clara's personality, she wouldn't leave easily, so he had deliberately staged this to make her give up completely. But he hadn't expected that even knowing he had slept with someone else, she would still stay. Clara also knew her eavesdropping had been discovered. A flash of embarrassment crossed her face. Then she spoke seriously. "Alex, I don't care about that. As long as you're willing to come back with me. I don't care that you've slept with someone else. I know you don't love her. You're just doing to get back at me. I know I was wrong. The person I love now is only you. Alex, I'm sorry for how I treated you before." She looked deeply into his eyes, hoping for his forgiveness. After all, Alex had loved her so much before. As long as she apologized, he would surely return to her. But Alex only felt annoyed. He gently pushed Clara away. "You don't need to apologize to me. Those things are long past. There's nothing between us anymore." Seeing Alex about to leave again, Clara grabbed his hand, her tone urgent. "Alex, don't you believe me? If you don't, you can come back with me. I've already made things clear with Samuel, and I've told Arthur Miller I'll marry you. Alex, I'm serious." The more she spoke, the more impatient Alex became. He roughly shook off Clara's hand. "I've already made it very clear, Clara Holloway. I don't love you anymore. Staying here is my own choice." Clara clenched her hands, watching Alex walk away from her. "You don't love me, so you love that Sarah Vance? Even if you don't like me anymore, you can still go back. You don't have to stay here and live this miserable life." Alex stopped. He turned back, his face calm. "That's right, I love Sarah Vance. And living with the person you love isn't a miserable life." He finished speaking and left without a trace of lingering attachment. Clara stood there for a long time. Those words hurt her more than when Alex had told her they'd slept together. She stared at his retreating back for a long while, suddenly understanding that Alex would never turn back for her again. She herself had lost him. Unable to define the emotion in her heart, Clara only felt like she was suffocating. She raised a hand to her face. She hadn't realized when she had started crying. For the next week, Clara Holloway remained in the village, but she was noticeably more restrained, no longer approaching Alex with strange declarations. Alex, though a little puzzled, was fine with it, as long as she didn't bother him. Life continued as before. Sometimes he'd go with Sarah to the fields or the lake. Other times, if he was too tired, he'd stay home and cook. He was handsome and had a good personality, so he'd already blended in well with the villagers, often receiving sweet potatoes, and the like. He accepted everything graciously, always remembering to send a portion of whatever he cooked back to the giver. Several weeks passed. It was time for the Harvest Moon Festival. Though the village was poor, they never skipped festival customs. Even if they couldn't afford mooncakes, every household would make a few different kinds of filled pastries. However, Alex had never made them, and Sarah, having grown up alone, had never tried such delicate work, so they simply had dinner together in the courtyard under the moonlight. After dinner, Sarah went to fetch water. Alex was clearing the dishes when he heard a knock on the door. Thinking it was Sarah without her key, he was about to tease her when the moment he opened the door, Clara threw her arms around him. "Alex, I regret it so much. All this time I kept thinking you'd have a change of heart and come find me. But I've realized you seem genuinely happy." She was drunk, her voice choked with emotion, clinging tightly to him, trying to draw some warmth. Alex frowned and pulled himself free from her embrace. "Clara Holloway, get a grip." His sharp tone made the usually imposing captain shrink back, not daring to make any further moves. She had stayed in the village all this time thinking that if Alex saw her sincerity, he would surely come back for her. So she had waited, secretly watching him. But she discovered that Alex didn't seem to be faking it. He was genuinely happy in the countryside, like a stubborn wildflower. When no one believed in him, he had managed to stand firm in the mud. She suddenly felt a wave of panic, as if she were truly about to lose him. So today, during the festival, She couldn't resist drinking a little and coming to his house. She wanted to say so much to him, to beg him to come back, but seeing the disgust on Alex's face, she couldn't utter a word. Even the alcohol seemed to wear off, her eyes red. The usually composed and calm woman had lost her composure, even wanting to recklessly drag him back with her. But she was afraid Alex would truly hate her. She looked at him for a long time before her voice trembled. Alex, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see you. Captain Holloway, I've reminded you many times. I am Sarah Vance's husband now. Alex spoke coldly, without mercy. Even knowing this fact, hearing these words still pained Clara deeply. She opened her mouth about to say something when another voice interrupted. Alex, I'm back. It was Sarah, returning with water. In that moment, Clara felt like a pathetic thief, coveting someone else's happiness. She didn't care about anything else and fled. Sarah returned home to find the door unlatched. She closed it properly and approached Alex. Why wasn't the door closed? Did I forget? Alex chuckled. Someone just dropped by for a chat and left. Sarah, unsuspecting, took the water bucket to heat it. The next day, Clara Holloway left the village, driving the same small car she had arrived in. She bumped her way out. She had taken leave to come, now only a few days remained. She was a captain, spending any more time away would lead to dissatisfaction. More importantly, she felt that Alex had truly found his happiness and no longer needed her. When Sarah heard the news, a look of relief spread across her face. Finally gone. I thought she was going to freeload here for the rest of her life. Alex found it amusing. Even if she freeloaded for a lifetime, she couldn't steal me away. How about we go get our marriage license soon? In the countryside, once a feast was held, it was generally accepted that you were family. Getting a license required a trip to the county seat, an awareness many people lacked. Sarah didn't think it was troublesome. She was now terrified that someone else would pop up to snatch her husband, so she agreed immediately. The onlookers were even more astonished. They hadn't seen someone in uniform in half a lifetime. She clearly looked very capable. The village chief hurried over. Hey, who are you looking for here? The road's bad. If there's anything I can help you with, I'll do it. Villagers had a natural affinity for people in uniform. Their ancestors had experienced war, and they held military personnel in high regard. Clara Holloway surveyed the surroundings, frowning instinctively, not understanding how David Miller could have decided to send Alex here. The base at its worst still had running water and electricity, but in the village they had to draw water from wells, and electricity required connecting lines, and no one was willing to waste money on electricity bills. She controlled her impatience and tilted her head slightly. Do you know Alex Miller? The village chief paused, then smiled. Oh, you're looking for the Vance family's young man? They're by the lake now. I'll take you there. Clara's frown deepened. Alex was by the lake. He was so delicate. How could he bear this weather to work by the lake? Her heart ached with pity as she followed the village chief. The country roads were rough, and it was even muddier near the fields. Everyone wore rain boots. Clara didn't spare a thought for her military boots, stepping through mud puddle after mud puddle, until she finally saw Alex. He had his sleeves rolled up, revealing slender arms. Perhaps it was too hot. He was wiping sweat with the back of his hand, his fair skin dazzling in the sun. As for his clothes, when had Alex ever worn such cheap material? Clara's heart was a mix of emotions. The village chief enthusiastically introduced, "This is Sarah Vance's husband. He came to our village alone a while back. No idea how Sarah Vance managed to marry him. Now he's the famous village heartthrob. Looks like a young master, but he's not lazy when it comes to cooking and working, and he's gentle too." Now the whole village envies Sarah Vance. The village chief wasn't lying. Many people felt Sarah Vance had hit the jackpot for several lifetimes. Even though this man didn't do much heavy labor, he was pleasant to have around, and Alex was never lazy. Clara saw from a distance as Alex wiped his sweat. The woman beside him quickly handed him a towel, her face full of concern. Alex didn't refuse, bowing his head to let the woman with tan skin wipe his sweat, even offering a grateful smile. A pang shot through her heart. In the past, Alex had only shown such expressions to her. She couldn't bear it any longer and strode forward. Alex Miller. The man paused, hearing the familiar voice, and turned in disbelief. It was Clara Holloway. Why was she here? Before he could react, he heard Clara say, "Alex Miller, you can go back. I've already spoken to Colonel Peterson, Your Miller family doesn't have to go to the countryside anymore. Her gaze swept over Sarah Vance. The woman who called herself Alex's wife looked dazed and a bit slow. How could someone like her make Alex happy? He must have endured so much in the countryside. Once they returned, she would propose to him. Clara clenched her fists. She had thought it through. She couldn't bear Alex marrying another woman, especially a country girl. Alex wiped his hands, climbed out of the muddy field, and walked over to her. Captain Holloway, you should go back. I'm her husband now. This was my own decision. This was clearly David Miller forcing you. How could he send you to the countryside? Come back with me now. I've arranged everything. You don't have to suffer here anymore. The man she loved was right in front of her, yet he called himself someone else's husband. Clara felt a stab in her heart. Alex's face was expressionless. From a moment he decided to come to Havenwood for this assignment, Clara no longer had any sway over his emotions. He said flatly, "It was voluntary, and I'm not suffering here. Sarah is very good to me. You should go back. Don't come looking for me." The more nonchalant he was, the angrier Clara became. Alex actually said he was doing well. Back at the base he had insisted on daily showers, wouldn't even cut his hair short. Here, there was nothing. How could he possibly be doing well? I told you, I've taken care of everything. Even if you're angry with me, you could be angry when we get back. In her desperation, she grabbed Alex's hand, intending to pull him away. Sarah rushed up and pushed her away. What do you think you're doing? Just because you're a captain, you think you can bully people? She was an honest person. If Alex had truly decided to go back with Clara, she wouldn't have said anything. But Alex clearly didn't want to, and this woman was trying to force him. Sarah stood protectively in front of Alex, warily eyeing the newcomer. A warmth spread through Alex. He hadn't expected Sarah to rush over and defend him. It made him feel even more certain about his choice. He smiled at Clara. "See? She's my wife now, Captain Holloway. We have no relationship anymore." Clara's face darkened so much it looked like it might drip water. After a long moment, she softened her voice. "Alex, I know you're angry. As long as you come back with me, stop staying in the countryside, I can propose to you. I was wrong before. I've investigated thoroughly. Samuel did many wrong things. I was the one who always wrongly accused you. You're angry about that, aren't you?" She considered herself above reproach, had never admitted to being wrong for anyone. Now to actually say she was wrong. Alex found it both novel and laughable. After he left, she finally bothered to investigate those things, but it was already too late. He curled his lip. "Clara Holloway, it's too late." Those few words nearly made Clara stumble. For the Miller family's matter, she had gone to great lengths to get this chance, then traveled all this way, only for Alex to say it was too late. She felt like her heart had been stabbed. She couldn't understand why it was too late. "Alex, it's not too late. I've already spoken to Samuel. I repaid my life debt to him. I won't have any contact with him anymore. I won't make you sad again. Come back to me, please," she pleaded. But Alex remained unmoved. He looked directly into her eyes. "No, I'm very happy here. Sarah is very good to me. I'm her husband now. Captain Holloway, please stop bothering us." His firm rejection made her usually calm composure shatter. Her gaze swept sharply over Sarah Vance. Covered in dirt, a simple country fisherwoman, not even pretty. What did she have that was better than her? She gritted her teeth, her voice becoming urgent. "You haven't had a wedding ceremony. You haven't even registered your marriage. As long as you want to leave, leave. The rest to me. Alex, you need to think clearly. If you really stay with her, you'll be in the countryside for the rest of your life." At these words, Sarah Vance immediately panicked. Clara Holloway was right. They hadn't done anything formal. Alex had just moved into her house somewhat haphazardly. Legally, they had nothing. Moreover, this captain was certainly more capable than she was and could provide Alex with the kind of fine house he was used to before. Alex could hesitate. Sarah began to doubt. The man sighed and took her hand. "Sarah and I may not have had a wedding or registered our marriage, but we have consummated our relationship. She's my wife." Instantly, Clara looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. She stared at Alex in disbelief, at their joined hands, her mind buzzing. You, how could you? How could you have been intimate with her?" She gritted out the words. The thought of Alex's firm chest, his long, lean legs, features he'd once flaunted to tempt her, now being enjoyed by this simple country girl, made her feel like she couldn't breathe. Someone as proud as Alex, How could he allow a country woman to touch him? She tried to convince herself it was a lie, something Alex said to deceive her. But the man's face was calm, even tinged with a slight smile. If Captain Holloway doesn't believe it, you're welcome to come by tonight and see for yourself. Sarah and I have a very harmonious marital life. She couldn't bear to hear any more and turned on her heel, storming off. Sarah's palm was sweating. She timidly held Alex's hand, wondering how his hand could be so warm. This was their first real skin-to-skin contact. Sarah shyly lowered her head. Only when Clara's figure was completely out of sight did Alex gently withdraw his hand from hers. Sarah felt a flicker of disappointment. Don't overthink it. Let's get back to work. We'll go home early tonight. She nodded, not dwelling on it. That evening, when it was time for them to sleep in separate beds as usual, Alex stopped her. Puzzled, where are you going? I'm going to sleep. Sarah held her pillow, about to go to the other bed. This in turn made Alex hesitate. Had Sarah genuinely not understood his implication? His attempts to seduce Clara had failed so many times. Was he now ineffective with a countrywoman too? A blush crept up his face. He grabbed Sarah's arm. We sleep together tonight. I told her we've consummated our marriage. We can't make it look like a lie, can we? A few seconds later, Sarah's face flushed a deep red. No matter how slow she was, she understood Alex's meaning now. She stammered, her eyes darting around. She wouldn't dare actually come and eavesdrop. You don't have to sacrifice yourself, Alex. You're finally awake. The doctor saw you. You have a high fever. You need to rest well. Sarah Vance sat by the bed, her face etched with worry. Alex tried to sit up. The first thing he noticed was that his clothes had been changed. He instinctively looked at the woman opposite him, who, understanding his unspoken question, blushed crimson. It wasn't me. I asked old Mr. Henderson from next door. The doctor said you needed to be sponged down. I didn't touch you. She looked so anxious as if she wished she had 3 mouths to explain herself. Seeing this woman's simple honesty, Alex managed a weak smile. You're my wife now. It wouldn't have mattered if you had. Thank you for taking care of me. Sarah Vance remained very reserved, as if she didn't even dare to get close. It's nothing. I should take care of you. There's nothing here. I've put you through a lot. The woman's earnest smile made Alex smile too. He lay in bed for several days before fully recovering. Sarah had taken care of him throughout, not only fetching water, heating it, and wiping his sweat, but also brewing medicine regularly. Even a doctor had visited several times. Most importantly, during this time, Sarah hadn't laid a finger on him. Although Alex had accepted his fate and would have endured it if Sarah had insisted on sharing a bed, she hadn't mentioned it once. This allowed his heart to slowly relax. Once he was better, he couldn't stay in bed any longer. Though he looked like a rich kid, several years on the base had ingrained certain habits. Rural life mainly revolved around farming. Alex had never done it, but he planned to adapt to local customs. He found some coarse wool clothes and put on a straw hat to shield himself from the sun. Sarah, are you going to the lake to fish? Let me go with you. Sarah Vance quickly shook her head. You just stay home. I can manage on my own. Don't you lift a finger. Alex smiled at her. Since we're married now, we should naturally work together. If I get tired, I'll come back and rest on my own. Sarah couldn't argue with him, so after many instructions and warnings, she took Alex to the lake. The weather was hot, and it didn't take long to feel dizzy from the sun. However, Alex had endured hardship for years at the base. This small matter wouldn't defeat him. He fished by the lake for a while, soon sweating profusely. The rough clothes couldn't hide his handsome, clean features. Other villagers working nearby teased Sarah. When did you get married? He's so handsome. You should have had a proper celebration. Exactly. If I had such a handsome husband, I wouldn't let him work with me. It's too demeaning. Sarah, why aren't you protecting your young husband better? After a few such comments, Sarah's face was bright red. Alex couldn't stand hearing his own wife spoken like that. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. I care about her. Of course I have to come and work with her. Weddings are troublesome and a waste of money. Not having one is perfect. We can save the money for a bigger house. The villagers nodded in agreement, and even some of the older women cast approving glances at Alex. After a full day's work, Alex felt like he was about to die from exhaustion. Even at the base, he'd never trained for an entire day straight. He returned home, took off his shoes, and as expected, found several blisters on his feet. He sighed. Sarah had already drawn water and brought it over for him to soak his feet. "You worked hard. This work is tiring. You should just stay home. I usually do it all myself. I'm used to it." Alex considered that his inexperience would only slow her down. It might be better to cook for her at home. He nodded in agreement. A wave of joy washed over the woman's face. She had heard from the authorities that a young master from the city would be coming to their village as part of an assistance program. 3 years passed with no news, and she thought it had fallen through. Then a short while ago, she suddenly received a letter. The young master was coming. Sarah knew that city-bred young masters never dirted their hands and would surely find the countryside lacking. But she hadn't expected Alex not only to not mind, but also to actively offer help. Watching the man in the distance bend over to soak his feet, revealing a sliver of fair ankle and neck, Sarah had never seen anyone so handsome. From the first glance, she couldn't look away. She thought for a moment, then took out a small pouch. "This is for you. It's all the money the family has. You can manage it from now on." Country folk live by selling their crops. Some might save for half a lifetime and still not have as much as Alex spent in a year. Sarah knew her meager savings wouldn't amount to much in his eyes. She explained quietly, "Even though I'm just a simple fisherwoman, I'll work harder in the future and earn more." A warmth spread through Alex. In this era, it was an unspoken rule that both men and women had to work, but he hadn't expected her to show such concern for him. So even though he had 100,000 on him, he hadn't considered taking it out easily, fearing this simple woman might squander it. Now it seems Sarah had a good character. Thinking about her care over the past period, Alex silently accepted the pouch. "All right, I understand. But don't work yourself too hard either. Starting tomorrow, I'll cook for you at home." Sarah nodded and went to heat more water. Though Alex could endure hardship, he couldn't stand being dirty all day. His only request to Sarah was that he had to bathe every day. So this country woman had to make several trips to fetch water every evening after returning home. Other villagers weren't so particular. When they saw her fetching water daily, they knew it was because her man liked to be clean. Alex closed the door to his room. The village had no communal bathhouses, so he had to use a wooden tub. He soaked in it, sighing in comfort. Life in the countryside wasn't as unbearable as others made it out to be. After soaking for a while, he dried off, changed his clothes, and came out. Sarah was just outside. The moment she saw him in loose pajamas, she averted her gaze. Alex's fair legs and arms looked even more porcelain-like in the moonlight. Just looking at him felt like sacrilege to her. Country people were simple. Even though Alex had told them countless times they were married, Sarah still didn't dare touch him. For the following period, Sarah sold fish outside and Alex cooked at home. He had never cooked before, but Sarah wasn't picky. No matter what he made, she would wolf it down in a few bites, praising it profusely, always finishing every last scrap. Once, he accidentally burned the rice. Even Alex himself couldn't bring himself to eat it and was about to make a new pot. But Sarah didn't mind at all, eating even the burnt parts, which astonished him. "Sarah, don't eat that. It's all burnt. I'll make you a fresh batch." Sarah shook her head, smiling simply. "My love made it for me. Anything you make is delicious." It was the first time she had called him my love. After saying it, not only was Alex stunned, but Sarah also seemed surprised by her own words. She looked flustered. "I didn't mean to. I won't say it next time. Alex, don't overthink it. I just heard others say it, and it slipped out." Outside, everyone called him Sarah Vance's love, thinking Sarah had incredible luck to marry someone so handsome and capable. Only the two of them knew it wasn't his choice, so Sarah had never called him that, maintaining a respectful distance. Now, the slip of the tongue made the usually shy Sarah extremely anxious, as if terrified of being disliked. Alex smiled. For some reason, he found it rather sweet. "From the first day I came here, I've been your love. You can call me that whenever you want. It's okay." This was the respect and affection he had never received from Clara Holloway. And Sarah, seeing he truly didn't mind, called out again, "My love, and why love? I hear you. I'll go wash the dishes." Sarah's face beamed with joy. She carried the bowls to the wash basin, her whole body seeming to brim with inexhaustible energy. Alex watched her retreating figure, thinking about the $100,000 he had brought with him. He could give them a much better life. Although Alex could endure hardship and wasn't afraid of it, he wouldn't let himself remain in the countryside indefinitely. He would prove to others that even if he went to the countryside, he could live well. After that, he began to research ways to make money. The main reason rural people couldn't escape poverty was their fixed mindset, always believing that only tilling the land could provide enough food. Over the years, although Alex's relationship with David Miller was poor, his father was a businessman and Alex knew a thing or two about making money. However, he hadn't figured out how to implement his ideas when an unexpected visitor arrived in the village. A small car bumped along the road, attracting most people's attention. A car? That must cost a fortune. Which rich person has come to our village? You only see these things in the county town or the city, right? I never thought we'd see one in our village. If I had a car, I'd be so impressive, huh? The villagers discussed, their faces full of envy. The car stopped at the village entrance, and a woman in a military uniform stepped out. But I will not forgive you for treating Alex that way. The person I like is not you. You don't need to waste your efforts anymore. She looked at the panicking man, continuing mercilessly. I will find Alex, apologize to him, and then be with him. Not with a malicious person like you. With that, ignoring him lying in bed, she turned to leave. Samuel, desperate, got out of bed and grabbed her hand. No, Clara. Clara was surprised, her gaze shifting down to Samuel's legs. Even his injury was faked. In an instant, fury filled her mind. She violently shook off Samuel's hand, her eyes filled with fierce disgust. Samuel, you truly sicken me. To think you'd use such methods to make me pity you, to force me to stay. Since your leg is fine, then this is where we end things. I don't want to see you again. Treated this way by the woman he had loved deeply for years, Samuel's heart felt like it was shattering, but he also hated Alex. He had targeted him for so many years and Alex still came to steal his person. He stubbornly hugged Clara from behind. Clara, don't be like this. I know I was wrong. I just love you too much. I'll get along with Alex from now on. I'll never frame him again. Please don't hate me. Samuel wept and apologized, hoping the woman before him would forgive him, would dote on him like before. But when Clara heard Alex's name from his lips, her anger flared even hotter. Unable to bear it any longer, she shoved the man behind her away. It's all your fault, and you still have the nerve to mention Alex? If it weren't for you, why would he have left? Why would he have agreed to go to the countryside? You forced him out. This is all your fault. The pain of knowing the truth, the anger of being deceived, and the departure of her beloved made Clara unable to hold back. Samuel's face turned deathly pale. He pleaded with the woman before him, begging her not to be so heartless, but she remained unmoved. He looked at Clara in despair, never expecting her to say such cruel words. Alex is so important to you? Then what am I? You clearly like me too. You treated me completely differently from others. You had feelings for me too, didn't you? He screamed hoarsely, but Clara's eyes remained icy. I've said it many times, towards you I only feel gratitude. He knew it. She liked him. If she didn't like him, why did she keep accepting his kindness? Samuel's eyes filled with tears, finally seeing this person's true face. He jerked his head up, his eyes full of mockery and unwillingness. Clara Holloway, do you really think it was me who forced Alex away? It was you who never rejected me, who always tacitly treated me well. You were the one who hurt Alex. Everyone on base knew I was special to you. Don't you think Alex knew? He was forced away by you. Now you blame everything on me? Clara Holloway, you are truly heartless. Samuel roared, his eyes filled with despair. Clara remained unmoved, her voice terrifyingly cold. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have treated Alex that way. With that, ignoring the man who had collapsed on the floor, she turned and left the hospital room. On her way, she went directly to Colonel Peterson's office. Clara, you need to think this through. Although I can help you this time, the Miller family has significant assets. If this gets investigated later, it'll be easy to trace. One wrong move, and your rank is gone. You've worked so hard to get to captain, promotion isn't far off. Consider carefully. Sending him to the countryside was a directive from higher up. Wealthy families had to comply. The Millers had already delayed for years. If she intervened now, she could lose her position. But the thought of Alex leaving her in that torrential storm sent stabs of pain through her heart. She had lost him once. She couldn't lose him a second time. Whatever the cost, she had to bring him back. Clara nodded solemnly. Colonel Peterson produced a document. All right, if you've decided, sign your name. If anything happens in the future, you'll bear the responsibility alone. This is as much as I can help you." She signed her name without hesitation, then smiled faintly. "Don't worry, Colonel. Whatever happens in the future, I'll take full responsibility, as long as I can bring him back." The colonel nodded, no longer trying to stop her, and put the paper away. Seeing her eagerness, he couldn't help but ask, "First time I've seen you handle personal matters like this, Clara. Who is this person?" "It's someone I like very much." A few days later, Colonel Peterson sent word that everything was arranged. She could go to the countryside to find him. Clara couldn't wait another moment. She took all her accumulated leave and immediately rushed to the countryside. She wanted to see Alex immediately. Due to the recent rain, the road to Havenwood was a muddy mess. Alex first took a bus to the county seat, then transferred to an ox cart that would take him into the small lakeside town. Several people shared the cart. None had ever seen a man as handsome and clean-cut as Alex. His skin was fair, his bearing refined. The rough few men from miles around couldn't compare to a single one of his little fingers. The women stared unabashedly, swallowing hard, stealing glances yet not daring to look for too long. Alex was prone to motion sickness, and the ox cart jolted. The whole journey left him drained, so he naturally didn't notice the stares. It wasn't until they reached the town and it was time to get off that the cart driver dared to approach him. Friend, which family are you from? You look new around here. If you've taken the wrong way, you'll have to wait for tomorrow's cart back." Alex finally realized they had arrived. He shook his head to clear it, glanced at the town sign, and nodded politely at the driver. "This is the place, thank you. How much do I owe you?" Alex reached into his pocket for money, but the driver waved his hands repeatedly. No, this one's on the house, friend. Which family did you say you were from?" The driver's face flushed as he spoke. Alex didn't mind. He pressed some money into the driver's hand anyway, then pondered. "It should be the Vance family. I've never been here before. Could you point me in the right direction? I can get there myself." He'd come under duress and hadn't expected any grand welcome. All he knew was that his future wife's last name was Vance. As for where she lived, he had no idea. Hearing this, the driver exclaimed in surprise. "You're from the Vance family? Since when did Sarah Vance have such a good-looking relative? Look here, they've come now. They must be here to pick you up." The driver pointed and Alex saw a woman trudging through the mud, her steps heavy. She had a serious expression, but when she met Alex's gaze, she quickened her pace. "You must be Mr. Miller. I'm Sarah Vance here." Aware of the driver, Sarah Vance instinctively paused, not finishing her sentence. Alex, however, was indifferent. He had accepted his fate. It was just marrying a simple country girl. It wouldn't stop his determination to build a better future. He smiled faintly and completed her sentence. "You're my wife. Let's go." Sarah faltered, surprised that Alex seemed unbothered by his situation, even though he was being forced to marry her. But she was always a bit awkward with words and didn't know how to explain, so she just nodded silently, which earned a whistle of admiration from the driver. "Friend, you're Sarah Vance's husband? You got him, mate." Alex didn't understand what he meant, but the woman's face was already beet red. She cleared her throat. "The road is muddy. I can carry you home on my back." With that, she bent down. The woman's back looked strong, but Alex was no longer a pampered rich kid. He shook his head and stepped into the mud himself. "No need for that. I can walk with you." Sarah Vance quickly led the way. They walked for about 10 minutes and finally reached a house with a tiled roof. In the countryside, such a house was quite decent, but Sarah still felt embarrassed. "In a village, this is the best kind of house we can build right now. Your father said you usually live in a fine house. I'll work hard to build you a house you like in the future." After speaking, she opened her mouth again. "I know you were forced to marry me. If you're unwilling, I can send you back to the city. Mr. Miller, there's nothing here. You definitely won't be used to it." Whether it was people from the base or the villagers here, seeing Alex's delicate skin and wealthy appearance, they instinctively assumed he was a city person who couldn't adapt to rural life. Alex didn't mind these looks. He'd heard far worse gossip. These were just words. Time would prove them wrong. He declined Sarah's offer to send him back and, turning expertly, fetched water and started a fire to heat it, showing no signs of being unable to handle hardship. However, he didn't last long before he started to sway. Before coming to Havenwood, he had stood in the rain at the base for an entire day and night. then traveled for another full day to get here. By now, both his stamina and his immune system were at their limits. Alex's face was flushed and he was panting. Before he could even wash his face, he collapsed. When he woke up again, he was lying in bed, a cool, damp towel on his forehead. Samuel, don't worry, no one will have to go. She prepared to send the telegram, but Samuel suddenly leaned down and kissed her lips. In this era, any intimate contact between a man and a woman meant taking responsibility. If word got out and reputations were damaged, the consequences would be severe. Clara hadn't reacted at all before Samuel pushed her back a few steps, kissing her more passionately. It was only when his hand touched her body that Clara snapped back to her senses and shoved him away. Samuel, what are you doing? Clara, I like you. I want to be with you. I'm afraid if Alex comes back, you'll be drawn to him. Clara, please don't bother with him, okay? Samuel sat on the floor, his eyes dark and brooding. Clara's face was ashen. I've never liked you, Samuel. Don't ever do this again. Samuel froze, the feigned tears ceasing. He looked up in disbelief. Clara, you don't like me? How could you not like me? You've always treated me so specially. Samuel, as the unit's medic, had long been infatuated with Clara, otherwise he wouldn't have searched for her for 3 days and nights during the avalanche, risking everything to save her. Afterwards, Clara's attitude towards him had softened. He thought she liked him too, but now Clara was saying she'd never liked him. Meeting Samuel's gaze, Clara's face remained stern. Everything I did for you is out of gratitude for saving my life, nothing more. There were no romantic feelings involved. I never thought you'd misunderstand. Samuel, I don't like you. Samuel was incredulous, his eyes reddening. You don't like me? You were always so good to me. You even gave me the most precious dose of antivenom. And now you tell me you don't like me? Then who do you like? Ethan Miller. Clara didn't answer. Now that it's clear, don't do this kind of thing again. She started to use the telegraph machine again to send a message to the colonel, but Samuel's long-held confidence had been shattered. He'd always believed Clara's kindness meant she truly liked him. It turned out it was only gratitude, no affection at all. He then thought of Clara's various interactions with Alex, and his worry intensified. If Alex came back, he would immediately steal Clara away. He slammed down the telegraph machine switch and amidst Clara's simmering anger, embraced her again. Clara, since you say you don't like me, then just let me live out this one dream, okay? He pleaded, pulling her onto his lap, starting to unbutton her neat uniform. As he reached the last button, Clara stopped his hand. Samuel, don't. More words of rejection. He was practically throwing himself at her, and she still had no desire for him. Samuel suddenly broke down. Clara, don't you feel anything for me at all? I only feel gratitude towards you, Clara replied. If that's the case, then can't you just think of this as repaying that gratitude? Clara, I don't believe you feel nothing for me. Samuel was determined to get an answer. He tore open her uniform, tried to arouse her, but from beginning to end Clara said nothing, merely enduring it silently. Even at the final moment of pleasure with the woman in his arms, Clara only sighed. When Samuel woke up, he found himself in Clara's bed. Before he could feel happy, he saw the woman who had just slept with him looking overjoyed, a telegram in her hand. This is great. There's a way for Alex to come back. He froze. The joy in his eyes slowly faded, replaced by resentment. Alex was gone, yet he could still steal Clara away. He deliberately fell out of bed. Ouch, that hurts. Sure enough, the next second Clara rushed over and helped him up. Samuel, are you okay? Seeing the anxiety in her eyes, Samuel secretly smirked but feigned embarrassment. I'm fine, Clara. Did I just hear you say Alex can come back? At this, Clara couldn't hide her delight. She held out the telegram. That's right. I contacted Colonel Peterson. He said he has a way to bring Alex back, and of course you won't have to go to the countryside either. You can both continue to live here. Samuel also smiled upon hearing this. Is that so? That's wonderful. Then Alex will know we're together as soon as he gets back. Clara's smile slowly stiffened. She turned to him. What did you say? Samuel, I said when Alex gets back, he'll know right away that we're together. Clara, don't be ridiculous. When did we get together? I told you I don't have feelings for you. Clara's face hardened. She was about to leave when he grabbed the corner of her clothes. But, Clara, we've already done that. Shouldn't you be responsible for me? There were still marks on her body, clear evidence to anyone that they had just slept together. Samuel continued. Does Clara really not have feelings for me? If not, why would you agree to sleep with me last night? You let me kiss you for so long. Have you forgotten? Clara. The more he spoke, the graver Clara's expression became. Enough. You said to consider it repaying a debt. That's why I did it. I don't have feelings for you. Samuel, please have some self-respect. I'm going to find Alex now. She dressed and was about to leave. Samuel was stunned. He couldn't understand why, even though he'd had her body, Clara's heart was still set on Alex. He glared viciously at her retreating back and suddenly shouted, Clara Holloway, do you like Alex Miller? Are you going after him because you can't bear for him to marry some stinking country girl? Clara stopped in her tracks. Did she like Alex Miller? He was clearly a pampered rich kid. He'd scrape his feet on his first day at the base and constantly harass her. But why, upon learning he was going to marry someone else, did she feel so anxious? Clara remembered Alex's bright eyes, the way he smiled so often, how every time he pretended to embrace her, she had wanted to hold on to that warm body. But in a professional setting, she was a captain. How could she indulge in personal feelings? She stood there for several seconds, finally sorting out her emotions. Yes, I like Alex Miller. I'm going to bring him back. Samuel, don't ever bring this up again. She didn't look back, walking straight out. Samuel grew desperate. He didn't care about his half-dressed state and rushed to the window. Clara, if you dare go find him today, I'll jump. Clara didn't turn back. Samuel gritted his teeth and jumped. It was the second floor, not high, but Clara heard something fall. Her pupils contracted violently in disbelief. She turned back to see Samuel gone from the room, the window open. She rushed in. Samuel had really jumped. Looking at the blood on the ground, Samuel managed a weak smile. Clara, you came back. Her heart clenched. Forgetting her plan to find Alex, she immediately called for a doctor and sent Samuel to the hospital. She stayed by his bedside for a day before Samuel woke up. The doctor said that luckily it was only the second floor. There was no major harm, just a broken leg that would heal in a few months with rest. Despite this, Clara blamed herself immensely. She hadn't expected Samuel to actually jump. If she had known, she would have spoken to him properly before going to find Alex. Clara, I'm sorry. I used this method to keep you here. I really like you, Clara. Please consider me, okay? As soon as he opened his eyes and saw Clara by his side, Samuel pleaded. For some reason, perhaps due to a mix of emotions, Clara didn't immediately refuse him this time. Get some rest. I'll go get you some food. She tucked him in and headed to the hospital cafeteria. On the way she was torn. Samuel was a good man and Alex always made things difficult for him. If she really brought Alex back, Samuel would surely have a hard time. Thinking about today's events, she hesitated. Clara Holloway stared intently at Samuel. She had always believed that although he was occasionally mischievous, it was understandable and he was after all the man who had saved her life, so she had always indulged him on the base. But she hadn't expected that her indulgence would lead Samuel to treat Alex this way, even forcing him to go to the countryside. Her heart turned cold, her face devoid of any expression. Samuel, that day, you were the one who smashed the medicine bottle. Why did you frame Alex? Samuel's face changed. Before he could explain, Clara continued. Why did you push Alex into the river? Why did you burn his mother's photograph? Samuel, why did you do these things? With each question, Clara stepped closer, her presence looming over Samuel. He hadn't expected Clara to know everything. Seeing the woman's frosty expression, Samuel couldn't help but tremble. But then, as if remembering something, his eyes reddened. I didn't mean to do it. I dislike you too much, Clara. When I saved you before, it was because I like you. I loved you. But Alex has no tact at all, and he kept trying to compete with me for you. I was just so worried. What if you liked him? What if you didn't want me anymore? Clara, didn't you just promise to consider me? As he spoke, tears streamed down his face. Samuel was adept at using his perceived vulnerability, countless times feigning weakness to make women pity him. But Clara had seen his true colors now. Looking at his tears, she only felt disgust. This was how he had repeatedly hurt Alex. Clara remained unmoved, her voice cold. When you were poisoned, I already saved you once. We're even. I don't owe you anything. Let's just ignore him and go get breakfast, okay? Hearing this, the soldier on guard shook his head anxiously in rebuttal. Captain Holloway, that's not what I meant. Mr. Miller didn't skip his punishment. He stood in the rain all day and night yesterday. We all saw him. He scratched his head. When I said I hadn't seen Mr. Miller, I meant he left late last night. Said his reform period was over and he was going home. Then he left, and I haven't seen him since. Thinking about how he'd actually spoken to Alex alone last night, the young soldier's face flushed again, and he muttered to himself. Actually, Mr. Miller is a pretty good guy. Stood in that terrible rain all night and day without a complaint. Finished Captain Holloway's punishment before he left. Captain, don't be angry. Mr. Miller really likes you. Why don't you forgive him? At these words, Clara frowned immediately. He hadn't even told her he was going home. He just left? But perhaps it was for the best. His reform was over. Their relationship was no longer captain and subordinate. Clara's eyes darkened, trying to suppress the turmoil in her heart. Samuel, I'm going to look for Alex. Wait here for me. Wait, Clara. Didn't we say we were going for breakfast? Since Alex has already gone back, we can go after we eat. There's no rush. Samuel instinctively grabbed Clara's arm, pleading as he usually did, but this time Clara didn't indulge him. Instead, she pulled her arm free. This is a military base, no inappropriate physical contact. I'll be back after I find Alex. You can go eat first. With that, ignoring the person still standing there, she strode out of the camp, rushing eagerly towards the Miller family home. Samuel watched Clara's retreating figure, stamped his foot in frustration, and then had no choice but to follow. He wouldn't let Alex have any chance to hook up with Clara. Upon arriving at the Miller residence, the first thing that met her eyes was a 3-story villa. David Miller had made his fortune early and had lived comfortably for years. Even though he hadn't cared much for Alex, he hadn't been stingy with his son financially. Clara looked at the opulent villa, pressed her lips together, and walked in, Samuel trailing behind her. The dining table in the villa was laden with seafood and rich meats. David Miller was raising a glass in celebration with his younger wife. Now that Alex has gone off to the countryside to marry that Fisher girl, he won't be back to bother you anymore. You can finally relax, dear, right? The woman, though over 40, still retained her charm and smiled. It should have been like this long ago. To have raised your ex-wife's son for this long was already generous of me. David Miller nodded repeatedly and clinked glasses with her. Just as they brought their glasses to their lips, bang! The villa's main door was kicked open. Clara strode in, her face grim, her gaze sweeping over them. What did you say? Where did Alex go? Clara was naturally tall, and now with her voice lowered, she made David Miller jump. Captain Holloway, what's wrong? Didn't that boy Alex tell you? He's gone to the countryside to get married and start a family. Our family even gave him $100,000. Clara was already astounded to hear Alex had gone to the countryside to marry, especially a mere Fisher girl. Her heart tightened. How could a pampered young man like Alex possibly adapt to rural life? Even on the base, he had struggled more than others. The thought of that fair-skinned, refined young man marrying and starting a family in such a place made Clara's heart churn with irritation. She suppressed her emotions and continued to ask, "What's the exact address?" At this moment, Samuel arrived, looking flustered. He had been delighted when he first heard Alex was marrying a country girl, but then he saw how anxious Clara looked and hurried over. "Clara, why are you asking about this? Alex is already married. He doesn't need to come back to the base for reform. You're not responsible for him anymore." As he spoke, he winked at David Miller. The older man, who hadn't understood at first, finally grasped his son's meaning and put on a smile. "Yes, my unfilial son has troubled Captain Holloway for so long. Since you're here, why don't you stay for a meal before you go? Samuel is back too. It's perfect." Turning his head, Samuel looked expectant, but Clara was completely unmoved, her expression still icy. "Mr. Miller, I'll ask again, where exactly did Alex go? You previously asked me to reform him properly, and I believe I completed that task. Now that his reform is over, my relationship with him is no longer that of captain and soldier." She paused, then spoke in a low voice. "Since he's been sent to the countryside, I'll go find him and bring him back. A person like him, how could he possibly endure a place like that?" The concern in Clara's eyes made Samuel burn with jealousy. Why did Alex deserve her care? Even David Miller looked troubled. "Captain Holloway, I know you're responsible, but this was an order from above. We business people must integrate with the countryside for reform. If you bring Alex back now, Samuel will be the one who has to go." Yes, Clara. Alex did this for my sake too. Someone from our family has to go to the countryside. Are you saying if you bring Alex back, you'll send me away? Samuel opportunely lowered his eyes, looking pitiful. Clara hadn't known about this detail before. Now she was being forced to choose between the two of them. She clenched her fists and after a long moment turned and left the Miller house. I'll find someone. There must be a way to bring Alex back. Samuel, unable to stop her, stomped his foot in frustration. David Miller watched this unfold. He'd been around the block a few times. How could he not sense something unusual in Clara Holloway's behavior? Samuel, tell me, your Captain Holloway doesn't fancy Alex, does she? Frankly, Clara was a captain at such a young age. Her future prospects were surely bright. If she liked Alex, it might not be a bad thing. But Samuel scowled at the question. Dad, what are you talking about? How could Clara possibly like Alex? I'm the one who's going to be with Clara. His anger made David chuckle and admit his mistake. Yes, our Samuel is the one Captain Holloway likes. So what are you waiting for? Hurry up and go after her. Captain Holloway probably hasn't eaten yet. Take some food with you. He coaxed Samuel while Alex's stepmother thoughtfully packed a lunchbox with several good dishes and handed it over. Here, Samuel. If you can win over Captain Holloway, our family won't have to worry for the rest of our lives. Clara Holloway is bound to be even more successful than your father. Samuel's earlier frustration vanished. He smiled, took the lunchbox, and hurried after Clara. Clara had returned to the base. In her room, she racked her brains trying to figure out who to contact to resolve this. A few knocks on the door. She looked up, instinctively thinking Alex had returned. He usually came around this time, eagerly bringing her food. But when she opened the door and saw Samuel's face, a wave of disappointment washed over her. Clara, I brought you some food. My father asked me to bring it. Said you must be too busy to eat. Samuel smiled faintly, closed the door, and walked to the table, arranging the dishes. This was food from the Miller house, much better than the base cafeteria fare. But Clara had no appetite. You eat it. I'm not hungry right now. She didn't even glance at it, continuing to scan the numbers in her contact list. The people in it were at least at the captain level. Surely someone could help. Samuel knew she was still worrying about Alex. He bit his lip, frowning in displeasure. Clara, am I not as good as Alex in some way? Alex was a standard rich kid, tall, lean, and unforgettable at first glance, but Samuel wasn't bad either. He had a more delicate build and an innocent face. Whenever he frowned, he looked like he was about to cry, making him hard to refuse. Normally, Clara would have offered some comforting words, but now her mind was entirely consumed by Alex. A man like him actually sent to the countryside? She gave a perfunctory reply, her hands never ceasing their activity. Why would you say that? You and Alex both have your own strengths. Samuel took a few steps closer, pressing his hand on Clara's. If that's the case, then why are you always thinking about Alex? Clara, do you like him? The question jolted Clara to her senses. Yes, what was she doing? Wasn't it a good thing that Alex wouldn't be harassing her anymore? Why was she so worried now? Her hands paused for a few seconds, then she brushed Samuel's hand away. He was my soldier for a time, so naturally I must protect him. Besides, Alex didn't go to the countryside willingly. She found a colonel's contact information, her eyes lighting up. She remembered this man owed her a favor, perhaps he could help. She took the contact list to the telegraph machine. Just as she was about to compose a message, Samuel suddenly wrapped his arms around her waist. But if Alex comes back, I'll have to go to the countryside. Would you really let me marry some poor country girl? Clara. His voice was tearful, his firm body pressed tightly against Clara's, making her hesitate for a moment before her resolve hardened. I'll find a way so neither of you has to go to the countryside. He followed Alex into the water. The floodwaters rose. Alex was carrying a crying child to higher ground when Samuel suddenly approached. Alex, you've been coddled your whole life. You should go back. Give me the child. He reached out to take the child, who cried even harder in fright. Smack! Alex slapped him across the face. Samuel, people's lives are at stake right now, and you're still playing your games. Samuel clutched his face, his eyes venomous. After Alex got the child to safety and turned to rescue others, he suddenly felt a strong push from behind. Ah! He plunged into the raging current, but at the last second grabbed Samuel's wrist, pulling him down too. Alex! Samuel! Clara's voice came from a distance. but the current was too strong. They were swept dozens of feet away in an instant. Captain, those two are about to be washed away. When Clara reached them, she could only see two figures bobbing in the flood. Rachel, save me! Samuel screamed desperately. Alex had already swallowed water, his face deathly pale, but he didn't make a sound. Another bolt of lightning struck, illuminating Clara's resolute face. She leaped into the water, heading towards Samuel. In the final moment before the flood engulfed him, Alex saw her choice. He suddenly felt so tired, so incredibly tired. So be it. He released his grip on the piece of driftwood and let the surging waters carry him away. Alex vaguely felt someone wiping his face with a warm, damp cloth. Captain Holloway, you haven't slept in 2 days. Let me watch over Mr. Miller. No need. It was Clara's voice, unbelievably hoarse. The person tried to insist, but someone else rushed in. Captain Holloway, Dr. Evans has a fever again. He's calling your name. The figure beside his bed hesitated, then finally stood up. Take good care of him. The sound of footsteps faded. When Alex woke again, it was dusk outside. A young female soldier with a round face was watching over him. Seeing him open his eyes, she sighed in relief. You're finally awake. His gaze unintentionally drifted towards the door. The soldier misunderstood. Don't get the wrong idea. Even though Captain Holloway saved Dr. Evans first, she pulled you out soon after. She's been looking after you these past few days too. She only just went to see Dr. Evans a little while ago. If you want to see her, I can go get her. No need. Alex's voice was dry. I wanted to ask, have all the civilians been evacuated? The soldier blinked. All evacuated. Thanks to your help. She scratched her head, embarrassed. I used to think a rich kid like you couldn't handle hardship, but when things got serious, you really stepped up. You rescued the most people during this flood. The whole unit sees you in a new light now. She hesitated, then asked, her voice tinged with reluctance. But are you going to finish your reform and go home soon? I am leaving, Alex said softly. Not home, though. To a small town to get married. After sending the soldier away, Alex forced himself to get up and pack. The suitcase was almost full, but he couldn't find a photograph of him and his mother anywhere. Alex, are you looking for this? Samuel was standing in the doorway, an old, yellowed photograph dangling from his fingers. Get back. Alex shot up, his vision blurring for a moment. Samuel took a couple of steps back, pulled a box of matches from his white coat pocket, and struck one. All right, here you go. The flame flared, licking at the edge of the photo. In that instant, Alex's mind exploded. He lunged forward and slapped Samuel hard across the face. Smack! Samuel staggered and fell, the photo slipping from his hand. The flames had already reached his mother's face. Alex dove to grab it, but Samuel raised his hand high. The photo burned completely to ash, scattering on the floor. Alex's eyes were wide with fury. He grabbed Samuel's collar and slammed him to the ground. Alex Miller! Clara's voice exploded from the doorway. The next second, she yanked him off Samuel. Alex stumbled and hit the corner of a table. She looked down at Samuel on the floor. He was clutching his face, his voice weak. Clara, don't blame Alex, it's my fault. I knew he didn't like me, but I was worried about him and secretly came to see him. And that's why he got angry. Apologize. She stared at Alex, her voice like ice. Alex stared fixedly at the pile of ashes, motionless. I said apologize. I did nothing wrong. Alex stared back at her, enunciating each word. He burned my mother's photograph. It's just a photograph. Her jaw tensed, anger simmering in her eyes. You think hitting someone is justified? Just a photograph? He laughed, his eyes burning. Clara Holloway, do you have any idea that was the last thing my mother left me? She paused, taken aback. Before she could speak, Samuel tugged at her sleeve. Clara, I didn't. Even if Alex dislikes me that much, he shouldn't slander me like this. Clara's frown deepened instantly. She issued a direct order. I thought during the flood relief you finally acted like a responsible man, but I see you're still incorrigible. Get outside and stand there. She pointed to the torrential rain pouring down in the courtyard. You can come back in when you're ready to apologize. Samuel feigned a protest. Alex is proud. He won't apologize to me in this heavy rain. He'll get sick if he stands out there too long. If he won't apologize, he can stand there all day. Alex suddenly laughed. No matter what, she always chose to believe Samuel. He turned and walked out without even grabbing a jacket, straight into the rain. Behind him, he heard Clara and Samuel's voices, heard her ask Samuel softly if he was hurting, heard her quick footsteps moving away. Rain lashed his face, mixing with tears, impossible to tell if it was cold or hot. The storm raged for an entire day and night. Alex stood ramrod straight, rainwater streaming from his hair, his clothes long since soaked through. "Mr. Alex?" A familiar voice. Mrs. Davison rushed over with an umbrella. Seeing him in this state, tears immediately welled in her eyes. She tremblingly pulled out a cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside was a thick stack of cash. "Mr. Miller asked me to bring you 100,000. Mr. Alex, please just go back and apologize to your father. That town in the middle of nowhere is no place for you, especially not to get married and spend the rest of your life there." Alex shook his head. "He'll be happier than anyone if I go. No matter how much I apologize, it won't change his decision." Mrs. Davison's voice trembled, her tears splashing into the muddy water. She had come with his mother from her family home, had watched him grow up. Now all she could do was uselessly tug at his sleeve. "But you're his own flesh and blood." Flesh and blood. Alex smiled faintly, his voice soft. "The day he brought that woman and her son into the house, I lost my father. He's too busy playing dad to another man's son now." Mrs. Davison cried harder. Alex looked towards a corner of the wall in the downpour. Weeds were battered by the wind, swaying wildly, but they never bent completely. "Don't worry," he took the money. "I can survive anywhere. And I'll make sure my life is far better than theirs." Back in his room, he'd changed out of his drenched clothes and picked up the suitcase he'd already packed. As he walked out of the base's main gate, the young soldier on duty called out in surprise, "Mr. Miller, are you going home?" Alex looked towards the distant gray mountains. There was a home there he'd never been to, a destination arranged by his father where he was to marry a simple country girl. "Yeah," he nodded, his voice light, "going home." The young soldier blushed and scratched his head, both shy and reluctant. "Well, when will you come back to visit?" Old man Henderson from the mess hall said he saved some smoked bacon for you. Alex smiled brightly. "Thanks, but I won't be back. Never again." With that, he turned and walked into the rain, striding away without a backward glance. A sudden premonition struck Clara Holloway. She looked out the window. The rain was torrential, a dense curtain obscuring the view, making it impossible to see outside, let alone find Alex. Clara's gaze darkened. She stood up. Samuel grabbed her arm. "Clara, are you going to look for Alex?" "Well, in this downpour, he definitely won't last. He's probably just waiting for you to soften up." He smiled innocently, which made Clara frown. "Don't talk about Alex like that. He's not the type to shirk punishment. From his first day here, he's completed every single one. But today's rain is too heavy. If he stays out there any longer, something bad will happen." She couldn't help but worry about him. Seeing her expression, Samuel grew anxious, then stood up as well, hesitantly speaking. "But Alex has always been stubborn. If you go to him now, it'll only upset him more. Clara, why don't we wait until his time is up?" Clara thought about Alex's increasingly outrageous behavior recently. If she indulged him today, there was no telling what he'd do next. Her face hardened, and she sat back down. Samuel's face lit up, and he subtly moved closer. The rain didn't stop until the next morning. Clara immediately went downstairs to find Alex, a bottle of cold medicine in her hand. But when she reached the designated punishment spot, the familiar figure was nowhere to be seen. Even the young soldier on guard duty said he hadn't seen Mr. Miller. Clara's recently softened expression hardened again. Alex actually dared to evade punishment? Samuel, seeing this, spoke with feigned regret. "Honestly, Alex, he won't even listen to you, Clara. He's probably slacking off somewhere." She stared at him as if wanting to say something, but Samuel suddenly interjected with a smile. "Should I take one of you too? Alex has always liked you. It'd be a good memento." Clara's face turned cold instantly. "Unnecessary." She looked at Alex, her voice devoid of any warmth. "I will never like him." Alex tugged at the corner of his mouth. Funny, he didn't like her anymore either. Just then, the sky suddenly darkened and large raindrops began to fall. Clara tossed her jacket to Samuel to shield him from the rain, her tone cool. "You two wait here, I'll go get the car." After she strode off, Samuel's demeanor changed instantly, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "See that, Alex? No matter how much you try to woo her, she only has eyes for me. Alex couldn't be bothered with him. He turned to leave, but then he heard Samuel scream. A snake darted out from the grass and bit Samuel viciously on the ankle. Samuel thrashed his leg wildly, actually flinging the snake towards Alex. Alex had no time to dodge. A sharp pain shot through his calf. His vision went black and he fainted. When he regained consciousness, Alex found himself on a stretcher, the urgent voice of a doctor in his ear. Two men bitten by a venomous snake, but the bite locations are different. Mr. Evans's is more severe. The venom has already spread, but the hospital is out of anti-venom. Clara's voice was calm and decisive. I have some in my quarters. I've already sent someone to get it. Soon, one of her subordinates ran up, panting but holding only one vial of anti-venom. Captain, there's only one dose left. Who do we save first? The air instantly froze. Clara Holloway remained silent for a long time, so long that Alex's consciousness began to blur again. Finally she spoke. Save Samuel first. The doctor froze. Captain Holloway, this is a matter of life and death. Mr. Miller's condition can wait a bit longer, but Mr. Evans. Clara's voice was icy. I said save Samuel first. Alex laughed until tears streamed down his face. Then he completely lost consciousness. He wasn't afraid of death. He was just afraid of his life ending like this. In the last moments before his consciousness faded, he vaguely remembered many things. His mother's early death, his father who only had eyes for his mistress's son. When he was studying abroad, he'd been so lonely he couldn't sleep night after night. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of ending it all, but those people weren't dead yet. Why should he die? Later, when he met Clara Holloway, the only thing he wanted to do was to tear off her cold mask, to make her indifferent eyes reflect only his image. She wasn't interested in him. That was fine. He could love, and he could let go. He still had so much he hadn't done, so much more of a better life to live. Even if he was being forced to marry in some remote town, he believed he could still make a good life for himself. So he didn't want to die, but it seemed he no longer had a choice. When he woke up again, he was in a hospital. A doctor was changing his dressing. Seeing him open his eyes, she breathed a sigh of relief. You're finally awake. I'm not dead. His voice was hoarse. It was a close call, the doctor said, still shaken. Luckily, another batch of anti-venom was rerouted to the hospital just in time. Otherwise, it would have been really dangerous. Alex managed a weak smile. What about Samuel Evans? The doctor, thinking he was concerned, smiled. He's fine. His injury wasn't that serious to begin with, and Captain Holloway has been taking care of him. As she changed his dressing, she chatted on about how well Clara had been treating Samuel, personally feeding him water, staying up all night with him, even putting her military calls on hold. Alex listened calmly, a strange lack of emotion in his heart. It was odd. He wasn't sad anymore. The venom is cleared. You can be discharged after another day or two of observation, the doctor finally said. Alex nodded. That same evening, he checked himself out of the hospital. Back at his barracks, he began to pack his things, clothes, his journal, the pocket watch his mother had left him. One by one, they went into his suitcase. Halfway through packing, the door was suddenly thrown open. Alex turned, stunned. Clara Holloway stood in the doorway, looking like she'd rushed through a storm. Her uniform was disheveled, her breathing ragged, as if she'd hurried back. He'd never seen her like this. She was always so calm and composed, every button done up to the very top. But now her collar was open and her eyes churned with an emotion he couldn't decipher. Why didn't you say you were being discharged? Alex's voice was calm. Why should I? You don't care if I live or die, do you? She was momentarily speechless, her throat working as if something was caught in it. After a long moment she said quietly, You found out. But a moment later she added, her voice hardening. Samuel saved my life. I can't let anything happen to him. Alex looked down and continued folding his clothes, his tone even. Oh, you don't need to explain to me. That was your anti-venom. You can give it to whomever you want. She was struck silent again. The air congealed for a few seconds. Then she noticed he was packing and her eyes narrowed. She suddenly grabbed his wrist. What are you doing? Alex, startled by her sudden action, frowned and pulled his hand away. He wanted to say sarcastically, Can't you tell I'm packing? But for some reason, he ended up saying mildly, Just organizing my clothes. This dump you call a base, you have to air things out constantly, or they get damp. Her tense shoulders seemed to relax slightly. Her tone reverted to its usual coolness. This isn't your penthouse. I never said I wanted to live in a penthouse. He didn't look up, and I won't be living in one anymore. She frowned, clearly not understanding his meaning, but a moment later her expression turned cold again. Are you planning to live on base for the rest of your life? I told you, don't cling to me. Get yourself straightened out and go back home as soon as possible. He couldn't be bothered to explain. He continued packing, silent. She stood nearby, quiet for a moment, then suddenly said, I'm at my quarters tonight. He didn't reply. She repeated, her voice a little lower, Samuel's recovered. I sent him home. Your injuries were more serious. If it hurts tonight, call me to redress it. Alex's movements paused. So she still remembered he was afraid of pain. Still remembered when they'd first met he'd scraped his knee and cried from the pain. She'd scolded him with a cold face, while gently applying ointment to his wound with her fingertip. No need. Alex snapped back to reality, his voice calm. I'm not afraid of pain anymore. He stuffed the last piece of clothing into a suitcase and looked up at her. If you have nothing else, you can leave. Weren't you the one who always talked about propriety between men and women? Aren't you afraid I'll deliberately try to provoke you again? Clara's face turned frigid. She turned and slammed the door behind her. It wasn't until midnight that a piercing alarm shattered the stormy night. Alex shot up in bed. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Rain hammered against the glass like a barrage of bullets. He just pulled open the curtains when he saw Clara in a raincoat rushing outside. They collided in the hallway. The storm caused the river levee to collapse, the units being deployed for disaster relief. Her brow was furrowed, rainwater dripping from her chin. Stay in your room, don't wander off. Before he could answer, she plunged into the downpour. Alex stood by the window, watching the unit's trucks drive out of the main gate. Mrs. Henderson from mess hall next door suddenly ran out crying. My grandson is still in the temporary housing by the river. What are we going to do? Without a second thought, Alex grabbed a raincoat and followed her. Half of the levee had already collapsed. Murky floodwaters carrying branches and debris surged downstream. Clara was on high ground directing operations, her uniform soaked, her voice hoarse. Team 1, evacuate civilians to the east. Team 2, reinforce the levee move. Suddenly, everyone's movements paused. All eyes turned in the same direction. Clara followed their gaze. Alex stood a short distance away, the downpour plastering his short hair to his pale cheeks. He was too striking. Even in this chaotic scene, he was beautiful enough to draw every eye. Clara strode over, took off her own raincoat, and wrapped it around him. What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you to stay put? David Miller sent me here. As long as I'm on this base, I'm one of your people. He looked up at her, rainwater dripping from his eyelashes. Disaster relief, I should participate. You can't handle this kind of hardship. Her voice was firm. Go back. But Alex smiled. Clara Holloway, you've never understood me. With that, he waded directly into the knee-deep floodwaters and began helping to move civilians. Clara tried to stop him, but Samuel's voice came from behind her. Clara. She turned to see Samuel holding a precarious umbrella. What are you doing here too? Samuel paused, then spotted Alex in the distance, his eyes instantly darkening. I wanted to do my part too. Before Clara could stop him. With a handsome face like that, he could have anyone. Why chase after Captain Holloway, who's clearly not interested in men? Yeah, if Captain Holloway were to date anyone, it'd be Dr. Evans, right? He saved her life after all. I've never seen her show special treatment to anyone but Dr. Evans. The hushed comments pricked his ears like needles. He ran faster, his voice growing louder. Third, fear no sacrifice. Fourth, be brave and unyielding. Sweat streamed into his eyes, stinging. He swiped at his face, unsure if it was sweat or tears. 10th. The world suddenly spun. He staggered, his forehead slamming hard onto the ground. A flash of crimson filled his vision. Captain Holloway, Mr. Miller fainted, someone exclaimed. Leave him. Her voice was as cold as ice. Continue training. Alex forced himself up, blood from his forehead trickling down his brow bone, sticky and cold. He wiped it with his hand. His palm came away scarlet. I don't need you to care about me either. His voice trembled, but he stubbornly straightened his body. Clara Holloway stood a short distance away, posture ramrod straight, her expression calm without a flicker of emotion. He laughed, a laugh that made his eyes burn, then turned and continued running. First, obedience to orders is paramount. Second, strict adherence to discipline. Blood mixed with sweat blurring his vision. He didn't know how long he ran or how many times he recited the rules. He only knew his throat tasted of blood and his legs felt like lead, each step like treading on knives. 10th, never betray. The last word barely out. His vision went black and he collapsed completely. Dimly he felt someone helping him up. He managed to pry his eyes open. Clara Holloway's hand was in his line of sight. Didn't you say you wouldn't care about me? Clara didn't stop walking, her voice firm. As long as you're under my command, I'm responsible for your safety. So that was it. He suddenly laughed, a laugh that made his chest ache. All those nights she'd climbed through windows to get a medicine, those nights she'd watched over his fever, those seemingly casual acts of concern, all just responsibility. Don't worry. His voice grew fainter. I'll be gone soon. He thought he heard Clara ask, what do you mean? But he couldn't hold on any longer and passed out completely. When he woke up again, Alex found himself lying on his bunk in the barracks, the wound on his forehead bandaged. He touched the gauze. His fingertips were cold. The door opened softly and Samuel Evans walked in, carrying a medical tray, a gentle, almost weak smile on his face. Alex, you're awake. Alex's expression turned cold instantly. I'll let you in. Clara asked me to come. Samuel's voice was smooth, almost melodic. She said you were hurt and asked me to bandage you up. He paused, then added, Alex, why are you always so careless in getting hurt? You don't really think this will make Clara pay more attention to you, do you? Too bad for you. His smile widened. Your father is mine, your home is mine, and Clara, she's mine too. Alex stared at him coldly. You're the son of a home wrecker. Who gave you the right to provoke me? Get out. Samuel didn't get angry. Instead, his smile grew wider. Yes, I'm the son of the other woman. But this son of the other woman has everything. He tilted his head, his eyes filled with pity. And you, the son of the rightful wife, have nothing. It's quite amusing, isn't it? As he spoke, he took a small bottle of medicine from his pocket and gently placed it by the bed. Here's the medicine. Remember to apply it later. Alex shot out his hand, but Samuel, as if anticipating it, stepped back smoothly, grabbing the medicine bottle from the nightstand. His smile innocent. Are you going to tell me to get out again, Alex? And then smash this bottle? He blinked, his tone deceptively naive. In that case, let me help you. Before the words were out, he snatched the bottle and slammed it violently onto the floor. Amidst the sound of shattering glass, he staggered back, collapsing among the shards. The door burst open and Clara Holloway strode in. The first thing she saw was Samuel sitting amidst the broken glass, his knee bleeding, while Alex leaned against the headboard watching him with a blank expression. Explain. Clara's voice was like ice. Alex closed his eyes. He remembered the last time Samuel had framed him like this. He'd explained, but what had it gotten him? Clara only ever believed Samuel. So this time, he couldn't even be bothered to explain. Didn't you see everything? He looked up, a sarcastic smile playing on his lips. What else is there to explain? Clara's eyes grew colder. Alex Miller, you're incorrigible, she said frigidly. Your punishment is. Samuel quickly grabbed her sleeve. Alex is still injured, don't punish him. Clara frowned. Samuel gently tugged her arm again, his voice pleading. Let go, just make him write an apology report, okay? Clara glanced at him and finally relented. Fine. Alex watched this scene, his heart feeling like it was being squeezed mercilessly. So even someone like Clara Holloway would make exceptions for Samuel Evans. He suddenly laughed. Captain Holloway, you have terrible taste. Clara's gaze sharpened. What do you mean? He wanted to say she was blind for falling for someone like Samuel, but before he could speak, Samuel let out a small ouch and clutched his knee, frowning. Clara, as expected, immediately forgot her inquiry and rushed to support him. What's wrong? My knee hurts. He bit his lip, looking aggrieved. Alex watched coldly as Clara helped Samuel leave, tossing over her shoulder before she left. Get that report to me when it's done. The door was left ajar. Alex sat at the desk, writing the apology. If he glanced up, he could see Clara in the hallway, half kneeling, tending to Samuel's knee. Her movements were so gentle, her brows slightly furrowed. as if she were handling something incredibly fragile. So she could make that expression too. Alex pulled his gaze back, the tip of his pen scoring a harsh line across the paper. Finished. When Alex handed over the report, they had just finished with the first aid. Clara took the report, skimmed it, her face changing abruptly. What is this you've written? What do you mean you were wrong? Wrong for not catching Samuel when he pretended to fall. Wrong for not pressing his hand into the shards so he'd be in too much pain to ever try such a pathetic stunt again. Alex met her gaze calmly. That's just the truth of it. A vein throbbed at Clara's temple. She looked about to explode. Clara. Samuel grabbed her arm. Alex has just been injured. Don't be angry. Clara's eyes were sharp, about to speak, but Samuel tugged her again. Clara, let it go. He turned to Alex, smiling gently. Alex, we're going for a picnic at the state park later, by the lake. Why don't you come with us? Alex, not interested. But Samuel had already linked his arm through Alex's affectionately. Come on, Alex. Don't be mad. I'll help you. Alex wanted to shake him off, but Clara was standing right there, her eyes fixed on him with a warning. He suddenly felt very tired. In the end, Alex was dragged along, sitting in the back seat, watching Samuel expertly open the front passenger door for Clara. He finally understood why Samuel had insisted he come. The guy wanted him to witness it firsthand, all of Clara's special treatment for Samuel. When the car started, Samuel accidentally brushed Clara's hand as she shifted gears. She didn't pull away the instant their fingertips touched. Alex remembered last month during training when he'd brushed her hand. She'd immediately wiped it 3 times with an antiseptic wipe. Clara, try this. Samuel broke off a piece of brownie, his fingertips dusted with powdered sugar, and offered it toward her mouth, accidentally smudging a button on a uniform. Normally, if someone dirted Clara's uniform, she'd give them a cold lecture for half an hour. But now, as Samuel exclaimed and tried to wipe it off, she merely looked down, letting him fuss. It was an indulgence he'd never seen from her. When the picnic blanket was spread, Samuel suddenly exclaimed, I forgot my water bottle. Clara immediately handed him hers. Alex stared at the water bottle. Last time he'd accidentally picked it up, she'd snatched it back, her face cold, saying, I'm a bit of a germaphobe. But now, after Samuel drank from it, he deliberately left a little. Clara, thanks, here you go. She actually took it back and drank from it. All day, Clara's attention was solely on Samuel. Alex was like an invisible man, silently trailing behind them, watching all their intimate interactions. Until Samuel raised his smartphone, smiling. Clara, let's take a selfie. Clara never took photos, but this time she surprisingly didn't refuse. With no one else to ask, she handed the phone directly to Alex. You take it. Alex took the phone, looking at them through the lens. Clara stood behind Samuel, one hand lightly resting on his waist, as if ready to protect him at any moment. He pressed the shutter button. When he handed the phone back, she glanced at him, her brows slightly furrowed, seemingly a little surprised. In the past, he would have thrown a fit, insisted on squeezing into the picture or deliberately taking a blurry shot. But today he did nothing. In fact, from beginning to end, he hadn't moved an inch closer to her. For 3 years, he pursued the Ice Queen captain, tried to charm her 999 times, and she'd remained utterly untouchable. He was all long legs, broad shoulders, and a lean waist, but she wouldn't even give him a second glance. After the last rejection, he snatched the phone from the desk and dialed a number he hadn't called in 3 years. I'll marry the girl from Havenwood. Silence stretched on the other end before David Miller's voice came through, laced with disbelief. Are you serious? Take it or leave it. No, no, no. His father's voice cracked with excitement. I can't believe it. This is wonderful. You've finally come to your senses. Dad will arrange the wedding immediately. Make sure it's a grand affair. Isn't this what you wanted? Alex laughed, but there was no humor in his eyes. Don't bother with the wedding arrangements. You're not invited, and don't you dare bring your precious first love and her son anywhere near me. Give me $100,000 by the end of the summer. I'll take it with me. Are you trying to cut ties with me? David's voice dropped, incredulous. Alex, I'm still your father. Father? You think you deserve that title? Alex scoffed. Just remember to send the money, otherwise the wedding's off. He hung up. He knew his father desperately needed him for this marriage alliance in the small town, so he'd agree to any condition. Alex looked up, meeting his own gaze in the mirror, seeing the faint resemblance to his mother. 10 years. His mother had been dead for 10 years, and he still couldn't forget the way David Miller had practically danced on her grave to welcome his new family. It was 1970. He just turned 10. His mother was barely in the ground when David brought home his old flame and her son, Samuel Evans. That day, Samuel, dressed in a brand new blue and white striped shirt, had timidly called him brother. Alex had responded by grabbing the nearest heavy object, an incense burner, and cracking it over David's forehead. He was shipped off to Europe that very night. Over the years, he'd let his father spoil his mistress and her son back in the States, while he, in retaliation, burned through his father's money abroad, living a life of excess and debauchery until 3 years ago when an urgent call from David had summoned him back. There was a new government initiative, something about fostering connections between urban centers and rural communities. His father, besotted with his old flame, naturally doted on Samuel, his stepson. He couldn't bear for Samuel to marry someone he didn't love or be inconvenienced by this rural assignment. So he decided to send Alex, his biological son, to the sticks instead. Alex had smashed everything he could in the Miller mansion, including his father's favorite porcelain vase. David, trembling with rage, had him practically hogtied and delivered to Captain Clara Holloway's National Guard training base that same night, forcing him to live, eat, and train with her. Clara, my dear, do an old friend a favor. Help me knock some sense into this ungrateful son of mine. Clara Holloway was the daughter of his father's old friend. Young to be a captain, she was notoriously known as the Ice Queen. The woman was stunning, one in a million, with long, lean legs, a hybrid nose, a uniform that accentuated her broad shoulders and narrow waist. Her aura was as cold as a blizzard on a mountaintop. Obligated to David, her attitude towards Alex was even stricter than towards her own subordinates. The very first day, she'd made him do drills until he dropped. A rich kid like him had never endured such hardship. His feet had swollen terribly that night. He'd cursed her out in his room for hours, but the next morning a tube of muscle rub had appeared on his nightstand. Clara Holloway was as cold as ice. Yet somehow when he'd had a stomachache in the middle of the night and the infirmary was locked, she'd climbed through a window to get a medicine. When he'd failed his shooting assessment, she'd kept him training until dawn, finally steadying his wrist and murmuring, "Aim carefully before you pull the trigger." When he'd had a fever and was delirious, she'd coolly remarked that he was a grown man acting like a baby, yet she'd stayed up all night watching over him. Alex's heart, adrift for so many years, had slowly, unexpectedly, begun to heal in this harsh environment. He'd fallen for Clara Holloway, but everyone said Captain Holloway's only passion was serving her country. She had no time for romance. He hadn't believed it. Everyone had feelings, desires. Was she pretending at being so stoic? So he'd started trying to charm her in every way imaginable. On rainy days, he'd forget his umbrella, showing up before her drenched. She'd hand him a jacket without a flicker of expression. "Put this on." On his birthday, he prepared a box full of gifts. She'd picked up the intercom. Security sent someone to dispose of these items. During training, he'd feigned heat stroke, hoping to lean on her shoulder. She'd sidestepped him and called to a medic, stretcher. Clara Holloway truly seemed to be made of ice, but she was different with Samuel Evans. When Samuel spilled coffee on her map, she merely said softly, "Careful, it's hot." The hideous red string bracelet Samuel had made for her, she'd worn it for 3 years. Samuel could even barge into her office during a meeting, and she'd only glance at him with a hint of exasperation before returning to her files. Everyone knew why. During a mission years ago, she'd been caught in an avalanche. Samuel, the accompanying medic, had searched for her in the frozen wilderness for 3 days and 3 nights, carrying her back from the brink of death. A life debt she'd never forget. And what was he? Just some rich kid his father had dumped on her to be reformed, the exact type of person she despised. Last night he'd seen Samuel leaving her office, a satisfied smirk on his face. He didn't dare imagine what had happened. Alex Miller might be reckless, but he wasn't desperate enough to compete with Samuel Evans for a woman. Getting married in some backwater town might be for the best. At least there'd be no Clara Holloway, no Samuel Evans, none of this crap that made his chest ache. Alex took a deep breath, grabbed a change of clothes, and headed to the communal showers. Wouldn't you know it? He turned the faucet and no water. He glanced at his watch. Clara should still be on the training field. She wouldn't be back for a while. He dragged out a large plastic tub, filled it with cold water from the tap in his small living area, then added hot water he'd heated. The temperature was just right. He sank into it. He'd been soaking for less than 5 minutes when he suddenly heard Clara's voice outside, talking to a few of her subordinates. He froze. The doorknob was turning. Ow! Clara suddenly snapped. Don't come in. The door slammed shut. He heard muffled voices from outside. What's wrong? I think Mr. Miller's in there taking a bath. I just got a peek, but man, he's... Bill, if I married a guy like Alex Miller, wow. You dream on. Quiet. Clara's voice was laced with anger. Another word of gossip, and you're all doing 20 extra clicks. Dismissed. Footsteps scattered hastily. Alex leisurely dried himself and got dressed. When he opened the door, Clara was standing in the shadows of the hallway, her eyes dangerously cold. Who told you to bathe in here? Alex Miller. Are you so shameless you'd stoop to this just to get my attention? Alex looked up at her. I wasn't trying to get your attention, and I didn't mean anything by it. The communal showers are. Didn't mean anything? Weren't you the one openly soaking in your living space? Weren't you the one stark naked? She advanced on him, step by step, the sarcasm in her eyes like daggers. Weren't you the one who insisted on sleeping in my quarters during the thunderstorm? Weren't you the one who accidentally fell into my arms during training? Alex Miller, I'll say this one last time, I'm not interested in you. Your father dumped you here. Once this reform period is over, you and I will have nothing more to do with each other. Her words, like a dull knife, slowly twisting in his chest. In 3 years, he'd heard her say similar things countless times, yet each instance still left him breathless with pain. To the track. She glanced at her wristwatch. 3 miles. Recite regulations while you run. Now, immediately. He bit down hard on his lower lip, the taste of blood spreading in his mouth. For a split second, he almost blurted it out. I'm not interested in you anymore either. I'm getting married soon, starting a family. I'll be out of your sight for good. But how would she react? He took a deep breath, said nothing, and turned away, his boots thudding heavily. The moonlight on the track was stark and pale. Alex ran, shouting at the top of his lungs. First, obedience to orders is paramount. Second, strict adherence to discipline. Windows in the barracks lit up one by one, heads poked out. Mr. Miller's getting punished again, TSK.